So you want to know some things about cured meats? Awesome, you're in the right place. Simple explanation is that a cured meat is just a preserved meat. The moisture has been drawn out of it and it is no longer a healthy breeding ground for bacteria. Long answer? Well, let's get into it. When the meat first gets butchered and comes off the cow, there is a whole bunch of bacteria in that meat. Bad stuff, things that are no good, things that will make you sick. So all this bacteria is getting into the meat from the animal. There's bacteria in the meat when it's on the animal. After the meat has been slaughtered, there's bacteria in the slaughterhouse. There's bacteria on the knife that is cutting up the meat. So there's bacteria all over the place, and it's all getting into this meat and it's contaminating it. And if that bacteria is left in there and nobody does anything about it, it's just going to grow and breed and turn into a whole bunch of stuff that'll give you food poisoning. So we don't want that. So what can we do? Well, our first option is probably going to be to refrigerate it. But if you don't always have that option, and seeing as how curing goes back a long ways, how far back does it go actually? Jot it down for next time. So you can refrigerate it or you can cure it. So curing is taking some kind of mineral or substance that will draw out the water in that meat and the moisture and get rid of it so no bacteria can breed. Most common types of things that you can use to draw out the moisture are salt, sugar, nitrates as well, other seasonings, and celery salt, as well as one other one that I'm forgetting right now. Now there are two different methods of curing that are the most popular. The first kind, the dry version, where you take some salt or some sugar and you rub it all over that meat and you basically just cover the whole big chunk of meat in a chemical, a mineral, some kind of something to draw out that moisture through osmosis. It takes kind of a long time. In general, the process of dry curing takes anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks. Sources are a little bit fuzzy on that. It really depends on the size of the meat and the amount of salt or sugar that you are using. I think the general rule of thumb is there's a ratio, but I can't remember what it is right now. The next type of curing is wet curing. There are two types of wet curing. First off, you can take that meat and you can put it in a bath, a brine of a solution that has been created that is made out of a very intense concentration of salt or sugar or nitrates, and soak that meat in that bath for, sources are varied. Some people said anywhere from 1 to 3 days. Some people said up to a week, and other people said some other times. It was kind of confusing, and not very many people agreed on how long exactly a wet cure takes, but in general, all the sources agree it's faster than dry curing. The other way is to inject the meat directly with the solution so that the meat is injected with that brine and all of the saltiness gets right up into the meat, right up next to the moisture, and can draw that moisture out much more effectively. Now I see you people looking at me and saying, Farley, if wet curing is so much faster than dry curing, why would anyone want to dry cure anything? Well, I'm glad you asked. Because when you dry cure things, you end up getting a much more intense and concentrated flavor. That's the main reason. There are some cons to dry curing though. Wet curing is a little bit better to get a mild and more evenly distributed flavor. And as I said before, it also is a little bit faster. You can also use more ingredients, which includes nitrates. But hold on, let's talk about that. Nitrates are controversial because they can do bad things to your body. Number one, when you consume a nitrate, your body breaks it down into a nitrite. It's not the good kind of nitrite. It turns into, what does it turn into? Nitrosodamate, nitrosamines, which are known to cause cancer, which is bad, as we have all learned in school. So the main thing to know is that when you see in a grocery store and it says that the meat has been cured, just double check that they're not curing things with nitrates, because those aren't the good kind of traits, if you see what I mean. So the main thing to remember is that in the meat, bacteria is in there and it's trying to grow and it's trying to get jiggy with all of the other meat and the moisture it can find. But it does not like sodium. So if you can get that meat and pack it with sodium and get all the moisture out of there, because bacteria needs moisture to grow and live and give people food poisoning. So if you can get that moisture out of there, then you can keep the meat good and fresh for longer. Now, you may ask, does a meat that is cured still need to be refrigerated? And the answer is yes, because I couldn't find a reasonable answer that I felt was convincing. All of the material that I could find said that if the meat has been cured, it still needs to be refrigerated after 2 hours, which is exactly the same thing about uncured meats. So it kind of begs the question, why exactly are we preserving this meat if we still need to refrigerate it? Curing predates refrigerators, so if you had no refrigerator and you needed to keep meat for a long time, then curing it makes a lot of sense. Now that we have refrigerators, I suppose it would make sense to cure the meat in case something ever happened to the refrigeration and the meat was left unrefrigerated in like a truck or a grocery store or something like that, then curing it would be great. Also, it adds a lot of salt and flavor, so maybe that's a bonus point in cured meat's favor. Anyways, that's all I have to say about meats and the curing of them. Thanks for watching.